David, it is nice to finally connect. As you said, you're coming into this blind, so we'll try not to get ask the gotcha questions too much, but it's nice to meet IRL in 2026.
Yeah, no, great to meet you as well. Glad we could connect.
Okay, so give everyone a quick background of where you're at today, and then we'll work back from there and get back to where you are by the end. But where are you at today?
Yeah, so my name is David Holmes. I just exited a Amazon marketing agency. Today's June 18th, so exited around 2 months ago to a holding company of different agencies. So now we're part of a holding company of specialized marketing agencies, one TikTok, website design, Google advertising, and then we fit into that portfolio.
Okay, and so did you stay on with post acquisition, or is it you're done with that now?
Yeah, so now I'm staying on post acquisition. I'm leading biz development for the Amazon agency, and then applying my techniques to the entire holding company as a whole.
Nice. Okay. So real quick before we get into the journey, maybe unpack what an Amazon agency is because I hear that I go Amazon agent drop shipping. What are you doing?
Yeah, so everybody thinks about drop shipping, right? And so, like, really, we help e-commerce brands sell on Amazon. Amazon is a completely different platform from Shopify. It has its own rules, it has its own regulations, it has its own support system. And Amazon is such a complex ecosystem
Mhm.
that whenever you try to hire in-house for Amazon, it typically doesn't go that well. I've been
Oh,
doing Amazon for 10 plus years now, and there's certain nuances to like that ecosystem where if you change like one button, one setting, that
oh,
mistake is probably going to cost you like $100,000, and you don't
mhm,
even know what you don't know, right?
yeah.
And so that's why people hire us to manage their Amazon for them. Typically, what happens is we manage like their entire like P&L on Amazon, and then we give them advice on how Amazon fits into their holistic D2C ecosystem. Like if they're spending a lot on meta ads, for example, or if they're in retail, like how does
Mhm,
Amazon fit into their entire brand identity? So,
mhm. It's interesting because I worked with a client one time and she was an expert in conversion rate optimization.
yeah.
And one of the things she would talk about was the traffic levels that you need to have before it matters. And Amazon, I can see, as you just said, putting it here or here, it can matter a lot. Most owners, they don't have enough traffic. You don't want to have a terrible website, but it's not enough to make a huge needle. But you're right, at a certain spot, it's wild. Some of the stuff she'd point out, like, oh my gosh, like having this here. And I've told clients like when it says click this button for X, if they click the button and they don't get X, they may leave in like some simple wording. So I am not an expert in the space, but I worked with one and it was interesting to see some of that stuff. And so I can imagine if you're on Amazon and you don't think about that stuff, yeah, it could be a really big deal because obviously they have a ton of traffic.
They have a ton of traffic. And even when people go to your website, it's something like 7 out of every 10 people will go to your website, hit the checkout, and then they go to Amazon and they actually price check. And
Hmm.
that's just because they have 5 other Amazon subscriptions. They're subscribed to like Tide Pods. They're buying like
Hmm.
dish towels, 2-day Prime delivery. Amazon is just such a fixture in people's lives that like
Oh yeah,
they have more trust when they want to buy from
yeah.
Amazon.
Yeah, unless I'm buying from a company that I know, like, and trust, I almost always price check, and I probably do then too some. But yeah, it's a new
Exactly.
thing online. I'm gonna go see if it's on Amazon just to verify it's valid. Like I've never heard of this group. Like, is this an actual product that's real? And so
Yep.
yeah, and if it's cheaper. So okay, all right. So let's go back to the beginning. So why did you start your company before you got acquired? All stuff. What was the genesis of that?
Yeah. So I actually got my start on Amazon around 10 years ago. And
Mhm.
I started with like Amazon affiliate websites. And so I was writing blogs about skateboards that people could buy on Amazon. I don't skateboard anymore, like can't do it. But
Mhm.
and then hoverboards came out in 2017, and like the blog was making a couple $100 a month. Hoverboards came out, and all of a sudden I was making $10,000 plus a month. And it's like 10 years ago, I was still in college. I was like, this is real money. And so that kind of like got me started with like internet money and like got me started with Amazon. And so from there, I started like a Merch by Amazon business. So Merch by Amazon is Amazon's print on demand like t-shirt business. And this is mostly whenever you think about like print on demand, you're generally thinking about like, hey, I'm a Christian born in 1994 or something
Yeah.
like that. It's like
Yeah.
Walmart type t-shirts. And so I built that business up, and I actually ended up exiting that business in 2019 through FE International. And then from there, I got into Amazon FBA, I bought a brand and then I sold that brand 2 years later. Then I started the agency, like just starting like the service provider side versus the brand side.
Yeah, it's interesting because most owners, they might have one exit. They're going to exit their company whether they sell or shut down or down the job sadly. But you've had I think three now, right?
Yeah, yeah, that's correct.
Yeah. That's so you are the definition of a serial entrepreneur, we could say. It's safe to
Yeah,
say that about you.
I guess. I mean, I guess I don't. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I don't really see it like that. I guess like I kind of just get bored after like 3 to 5 years of like one thing. I'm like,
Mhm.
okay, like what's next? So
Yeah. So going back to the start, you got into this. What was your revenue roughly for year one?
like 10 years ago, or like
Yeah,
with
yeah,
like
yeah.
the
When you first got into this, your first company, we'll say.
yeah. So with like the merch by Amazon business, I mean that was all subscale, right? I mean like you're selling T-shirts, you sell them for 19.99. Your profit margins like $4 a shirt. Annual revenue was probably around like 50, 60K. Or no, that was net profit. So 50, 60K like net profit at the end of the year.
Okay.
Yeah.
And across all three companies that you've had and now exited, what is the biggest killer or near killer that you've experienced early on?
So it was different, right? So like with e-commerce, you can scale into like millions with like one person.
Hmm.
And with the agency, it's a very different dynamic. And the thing that held me back the most in the agency was not hiring a COO, where at one point I was like managing 8 employees like by myself. It was just like a very different dynamic. I learned a lot of things like about myself, whereas like I am not the COO type, right? Like the second I hired a COO, my life changed, right?
Yeah.
And so that held me back pretty significantly, actually.
So is it fair to say then that the COO was the biggest breakthrough that you had, realizing that you needed one and hiring one?
Yeah, and I think like traditional advice for like entrepreneurs is like and is like, hey, like you can just like figure this out, right? Like and like everything I've done kind of like in my career, it's just like been me banging my head through a wall because I'm pretty
Hmm.
stubborn and like I'm self-taught. Like I used to be a mechanical engineer. Like I don't do any mechanical engineering now. But at a certain point, like you have to lean into like your actual strengths. And then you have to
Hmm.
realize that like for your weaknesses, there's probably somebody who's like really good at those weaknesses and they probably like to do it much better than you are.
Yeah.
And so like for me, like whenever I manage like a big team and everything like that, it actively drains my energy. Right.
Yeah.
It's not what I like to do. It's not what I'm good at. But like when I find that person, it's like a missing puzzle piece. Like it sounds so
Hmm.
cliche to say, like, but it is.
Well, it's interesting. I try to relate as much as I can to sports because I think sports is such a great way for us to think about stuff. And so you can look at a team sport and go, well, Tom Brady, well, he's not the best defensive back or offensive lineman. Like he can only throw the ball and hand it off, stuff like he can read the defense, but he can't do it all. And if you said in individual sport, even those guys, they still need help, right? And so there are limitations. And I think in the business world, what has tricked us is that we will hear about a Bill Gates or an Elon Musk or a Steve Jobs, and we kind of forget that they're surrounded by a huge team of people. Like they are really good at whatever it is they're good at. They have a huge team of people that is doing all kinds of stuff, and they are not the best at all those things. And for the smaller companies, we think, oh yeah, I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to do this. Like, well, you're not the best at sales, operations, finance, marketing, human resources. You might be really good at one of those, but your limitation is going to be wherever you're not good at, which is going to be the rest of them. And so, removing yourself, the faster you can do that, hiring good talent. And I'm curious your thoughts on this because you will see the big debate about hire A players. And I think that that's kind of overstated because if you have good systems in place,
Yep.
you can hire, average talent, for lack
Yeah.
of a better term, and really grow a lot further than you thought you could.
Mhm. Yeah. I mean, like I think about it like it's kind of it's like a sliding scale, right? Like the better your systems, the worse quality. Worse quality is not really the right word, but kind of like the lower level skilled person you can hire because you have better systems, or you have less systems and then you find a much higher like skilled person. For me, I wasn't the best at like building systems in my companies. And so like my philosophy was a bunch fewer people, but I would pay them much above like market. and I would just like make sure that they're incentivized to help grow like the overall company. And that was because we didn't have good systems, but like obviously if you have better systems, then yeah, you can find better, like more affordable people.
Yeah, well, and that's a great way to put it. If you think about like a McDonald's, like they have a gazillion systems, and so they can plug and play anyone, and that's how they've expanded so big. The weaker your systems are, you will need more talent, which means you got to pay them more, and that's what I think gets a lot of people stuck is they have bad systems, and then they don't hire the talent, realizing it's going to cost them a lot more. Maybe you're not the best at building systems, but there is someone that you can consult with, hire, contract out, whatever, who can do it for you if you want to do that. But if you don't kind of take those two understandings of either build the systems out or understand you're going to pay more for the talent, you're going to be pretty frustrated because you get less talented people. Could be good people, but talk about this talent. I'm not Tom Brady.
Yeah.
I can't win
Yeah.
7 Super Bowls. If you're going to get less talented people, and then therefore you're going to be more frustrated because now you're not growing or sustaining because you don't have what you need. And so it is something that entrepreneurs they need to hear. And my question is, why do you think most entrepreneurs fall into the trap of I have to do it myself?
I think it's partially ego, where you have to feel like you're important to the business that you created. And when you start, it's a weird feeling like when you start delegating, because at a certain like there's a gap in between like when you have enough employees to do all of the work that like the business needs, but then you haven't found like that new position for yourself. You're like, this is my company, but I can take a vacation for like 3 weeks and it still runs. In fact, it runs better like without me there. And then like you kind of have to, it comes back to like your identity, and like are you like the orchestrator of the opera, or are you like one of like the violin players?
No,
Yeah.
it's 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 true way to think about it because if you're if you're running the opera, then you're just. I mean, they are doing stuff. You're up there doing this, which has no offense to music people. It is important. I get it. But if you're the violinist, your role is a lot more defined when you come in, when you go out, and stuff like that. And so it can be a loss of identity. I've encouraged owners as they think about kind of removing themselves, it opens up doors for them to grow their business in unique ways. They can meet with different people, but also they can take the vacation. They might get involved with charity. There are a lot of things you can do to begin to fill those gaps. So it's not like you had to sit around at the desk every day twiddling your thumbs. And if you have good talent, they're not going to need you anyways. If you
Yeah.
have good systems, they're not going to need you anyways. And so it's one of those things. It's like, okay, you're not going to be needed, but that's actually a good thing. Like, who are you more envious of? The guy working 80 hours a week who can't ever take a break, or the guy who doesn't show up but once a month?
I mean, like most entrepreneurs, like it's I feel like this is like bad. Most entrepreneurs work way harder for way less money
Mhm.
than W-2 employees. I would say probably like 90% of them. And it's just like a fact. I mean, sometimes you have to go through like those 80-hour work weeks, and then eventually it gets better, and then you go to 40-hour work weeks, then you go to 20-hour work weeks. But then like people see those 20-hour work weeks or those 10 hours or like the summer in
Mhm.
Europe or something, and they forget the 3 years like where working 12 hours a day. Like I've gone through that for sure.
Okay, so in your peak over any of the three companies, what was your top revenue you got to?
I was 7 figures in the agency.
Okay, so were there certain inflection points along that where you realize, okay, I do have to do things differently because the size, the scale, the volume of work y'all were doing just made it where I can work 15 hours a day, but I have to change if I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, I mean, there were certain inflection points with the agency for sure. I think a lot of agency owners rely on like their personal network to get to probably like 50 to like 100K per month. They have 10 clients, 5K a month, 10K a month, like retainers, like boom, okay. Now, like the hard part for most agency owners is like growing past there. Like they tap out like their personal network, and they don't have like an established like biz dev program, whether it's outbound, like paid media, partnerships, anything like that. They don't really have like an actual lead pipeline. And so for us, like we were built off of like cold outbound, like from the start. And so that actually propelled us to like the next level. A lot of people get stuck there because of their network. They do pretty well initially with their network, and then they can't grow beyond that.
You might be a great network referral partner. You can tap that out pretty quick, but you might not be good at sales. When you're meeting new
Yeah.
people, you're trying to pitch and present. And so you can tap out there. I've seen it time and again to where owners, they don't really have a sales system or a salesperson or anything. And their network was great to get them to where they're going to be.
Yeah.
And unless you are a world-class networker and you have a team, again, going back to systems and who you hire, you got to focus on doing the work. Your time gets divvied up because you got an angry client and you got a delivery list late or whatever it is, and you just can't do both. So, what did you have to do to become the best leader, that the best version of a leader that you could be?
It was a couple things. One, I had to find like amazing talent, right? Like I made so many mistakes when I was first hiring because I was trying to like cheap out. I was like, okay, like an extra 10, 20K in salary here. I mean, like that looks better on the bottom line. And the second I stopped trying to cheap out on the talent, then I could actually like separate myself. And then that was like one. And then the second is like when I hired like the COO, then I could fully trust her with service delivery. And that kept giving me like hours back in my day. And then the second I had hours back in my day, I could focus on like my superpower. Like my superpower is like biz development, like getting new clients. And every hour I spend there, like it energizes me. Like I can do it all day. Like it's one of my favorite things to do. And that kind of created like a positive feedback loop, which really helped.
So, if you had to go back, what would you do differently?
Oh, I would instantly hire a COO. Honestly, probably even like before I even had clients, or maybe like once I had like 3 or 4 clients, like I would instantly, that would be my first hire. Without it, it felt like building like a house, but I was missing the foundation. And I was like
Yeah.
trying to keep it up.
So, some might be great operators or COO kind of mindset, but what you're essentially saying is find your weakness that's going to move the needle the most, and then hire that as soon as you can.
Yeah, 1000%. I mean, it requires kind of like knowing yourself a little bit, but also like you can kind of feel it out, right? Like I think like one of the best things I did was just a basic like calendar audit of like, okay, like what do I actually like to do? Like if I look at
Yeah.
my calendar, like what gives me energy, what subtracts energy, and then you just gotta hire out like what subtracts energy, and then like you gotta create that positive feedback loop as quickly as possible.
Yeah. So you've gone through it 3 times now. What's the emotional side for you of selling your business?
So it was different at each one. I would say like the most relevant one is when I sold a e-commerce brand in 2022. I caught the tail end of like the big Amazon FBA aggregator bubble. Like Thrasio raising a ton of money, everybody's buying these brands, 4 to 6x multiples. I knew it was a bubble. I was like, okay, I gotta sell. It was, I mean, you're working 12 hours a day. It's literally your life. And then all of a sudden, like with the e-commerce brand, I was out, out immediately the next day. Money wired to the account, small seller financing like amount, but like I'm not actively involved. It's kind of like, yeah, it's like a loss of like identity for a bit. Like you have to, I mean, yeah, I'm not gonna lie, I spiraled a little bit for sure. You have to kind of find yourself, I guess, like a little bit afterwards.
Being that you're staying on with this latest exit, though, does it feel differently?
Yeah, I think it feels differently for sure. I mean, whenever now I'm part of like a bigger organization. I mean, this is the first time I've worked in a bigger organization in the last 7 years, so it's definitely been an adjustment. But it's not like I'm completely absent from like the company that I built, right? Like I can see it, I can still shepherd it, and I can still kind of like steer the ship a little bit. It's not like I'm stepping away.
So you mentioned that you went through a little bit of a spiral
Yeah.
on one of the exits, but were you ultimately happier after that kind of worked itself through? And if so, what made you realize that, okay, now I'm in a better spot?
Yeah. No. I mean, I think that sale was definitely the right decision. It was a bubble. If you look at the results of that bubble from 2020 to 2022, a bunch of Amazon FBA businesses were getting 7-figure offers during that time and are now worth essentially zero, right? And so I managed to get an exit, managed to get lump sum. It was definitely the right move at the time. I think I just didn't understand. I didn't know how to fill that time immediately afterwards, going from working 10, 12 hours a day on your baby to being like, oh, that's not mine anymore.
So the bubble component is interesting because I've talked to a lot of owners and they will predict what they think might happen in their market. And did you know it was going to be a bubble and you're trying to like keep that internally or from the buyers so that they didn't know, or were you surprised the bubble burst, or did that factor into your decision at all?
It definitely factored into my decision. I mean, like, there's two sides to like when thinking about like selling or buying a business, right? There's always a market for a good business. Like somebody will always buy a good business, but selling a business is not like clicking sell on a stock. Like the market for, and I can only speak to like e-commerce, right? Like I mean, I don't have a ton of experience elsewhere, but like from 2023 to 2024, there were essentially zero Amazon FBA deals getting done. Like there was no liquidity in the entire market at all. Even if you wanted to sell, you probably couldn't. Or if you did, it was probably like a 1.5 to 2x multiple. When in 2021, it was a 4 to 6x. Like that's a massive like enterprise value difference. And I mean, like, yeah, I mean, like there's not always liquidity for some of these like market opportunities, especially like subscale, right? So
So for an owner who's watching this and they're hearing all the big multiples in their industry, and let me just say for owners, be careful hearing those multiples. Your business may or may not fall into that same multiple range, but you're hearing that. And there's a lot of hype. How should they think about whether or not they should ride that wave and go ahead and exit, or should they keep it and then see what happens maybe 3, 5, 7 years from now?
I think selling a business is a incredibly personal decision. You have to think about like one, like your personal financial situation, obviously. I mean, for me, like I have a very like binary decision where if I'm below like a financial freedom level, whatever that is to you personally, I will always bias towards selling just because like black swan events happen and they happen very frequently. I mean, COVID killed a ton of businesses. Tariffs during tariffs, like my service agency business dropped 30% in the span of like 2 weeks. Like stuff just happens, right? And so like I'm a pretty risk adverse individual. I mean, if you look at my career, you might not think that, but like financial like liquidity is important. If you're past financial freedom, then yeah, sure, swing for the fences, do what you want. That's kind of like more of an emotional decision. Like, are you having fun in the business? Do you work with people who like you like to work with? Like, do you see like growth opportunities? I mean, it's kind of a personal decision.
No, I agree with what you said there because the first company that I bought, I'd worked at, it was a family owned business. I'd worked there for like 13 years. I've been running it and I bought it. And then when I bought it, I had set it up to where I had removed myself from the business before I bought it. So, like true owner dependency because I realized I love my dad, but he's making all the money. I'm getting a wage. And so I want to remove myself. So I was able to do that. And I wanted to work on international projects. And so I was really in those circles. And I had a lot of lucrative opportunities. And then COVID happened. And so I sold to one of the employees, and I think they were, some of his buddies that they're successful now. I didn't want to rebuild it though. I was like, no, I don't want to go through that again. But the math in my house at the time was by the end of 2021, where things would be at would be crazy different than where they were. But then COVID happened. And so to your point, these black swan events, they can happen. You can't live your life in fear that they're going to happen, but they do happen. And so if you are sitting there, I like the kind of the binary. Do you have enough money to ever to retire and be financially free or not? And so that is a great way to think about it because you are going to probably sign a non-compete. You are going to be out of that space for 5 years. And if you get bored, you can come back in,
Yeah.
or you could do kind of like what you've done with your last deal, which is partner with a PE. You could stay on, get the second by the apple. There's a lot of ways you can do that, but I do tend to go with the binary. Is it enough or not? Because I am more risk averse than most people, I would think, but I realized I did not want to rebuild this thing. I have no desire to go back and do that. And because I'd worked so hard for so many years, like the thought of doing that again was not anything of interest to me.
Yeah.
And it is very emotional to your point. And so I think owners have to sit back and go, okay, do I have enough right now to retire? Can this net me enough? And that's a conversation that, oddly enough, it doesn't take that long to figure that out. Like it's not a
Yeah.
big, it's a math problem, but it's not a
Yeah.
big, huge, advanced calculus, rocket science math problem. You can figure it out over a few phone calls and go yes, and then determine whether or not your company is worth it or not.
I think you definitely have to ground yourself in reality when you kind of like think about like what your company is worth. Like you hear like, oh, like the guy at the country club said like he sold for like a 6x to 7x. It's like, I mean, dig a little bit deeper than that
Yeah,
surface level number,
yeah,
because whenever you hear like that multiple, you probably get biased towards that. You know no details about
yeah.
that deal. You don't know if that's an 80% earnout, 80% seller financing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know nothing. Okay. And so like the deal structure matters so much. The best thing you can do is like talk to people in confidence, like who have done deals, and really try to learn the deal structure, like not just the
Mm-hmm.
surface level multiple. Like people will never say their deal structures publicly because of like confidential information, stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but talk to
Yeah.
them in person.
Well, and going back to what you said earlier, that you went with the talent route instead of the process route.
Yeah.
Okay, well, the buddy at the golf club, he might be a process guy. His margins might be a lot better because he's able to acquire talent for cheaper than you are. And so he might be getting a better multiple. Customer concentration might look different. There's a lot of things that might look different. That's the hard part about M&A is that when you talk to someone who does it, there's like questions that we have to understand, but the general generic advice is like, wow, it's really hard to say in your case what your company might go for because I got to know so much about this. I always joke that multiples are between 3 and 7x. It's kind of like, okay, it's 3 and 7x. What's your company worth?
And
But even
honestly,
that,
the structure probably
the
matters
structure,
more than the multiple in some
yeah,
cases. I mean, like if somebody has a 7x, but it's like a 90% like earn out or something like that, then it's like, I don't know. Or you can take a 3x all cash,
yeah.
guaranteed. I mean, like the
Yeah.
structure matters very significantly.
Well, and I talked to Kevin Henderson a while back from the S&B Law Group, and he said that I think it was earnouts. They're one or two earnouts. I can't remember if it was one or two, but they're the most litigated or second most litigated part of M&A. And so when you
Yeah.
talk about earnouts, like a 90% earnout, like, yeah, it could be a lot of upside, but it might be a lot of lawsuits to get that if you ever get it. And so it is extremely risky from a seller standpoint. And so you really have to be comfortable with who's buying it. Do you trust them? And I always tell people, don't hire your cousin Vinny who does the divorces for your M&A deal. Make sure you have a good M&A attorney who understands
Yep.
this. So what would you say, if anything, do you miss most post exits? Now I know your current one is
Yeah.
kind of new, but your previous two.
Yeah, honestly, I'll talk about the current one because this is like the first time I had like a ton of employees. And so like we had 10
Mm-hmm.
employees like when we sold. And like, look, I didn't like managing employees. Like I'll be very blunt about that. It's not my strength. Not.
Yeah.
I did miss the culture of performance and like working alongside really talented people every single day.
Mm.
And that was actually like it was kind of surprising to me. And like look, I still work with them, right? And
Yeah.
so like nothing's changed. All of our employees like transferred with us like with the acquisition. Tried to like do right by my employees, but like the culture is a little bit different now. Like we're
Yeah.
in a bigger company, and like yeah, I did kind of miss like that weekly like all hands call where we're like joking around with each other, like that camaraderie. We had offsites like twice a year. Yeah.
Okay. So going through 3 exits now, if we went back 10 years ago, what would you tell yourself then? Get ready for 3 exits, build bigger, exit faster. What would you say?
I would say swing on like the right opportunity because like the market size will dictate it's it'll dictate the ceiling, right? And so like print on demand, for example, like if you look at like how much like these print on demand businesses like sell for, like merch by Amazon in particular, most of them are 6 figures. The biggest one I've ever seen was like low 7 figures. Okay. And so like that's just not that big, right? And then so like e-commerce, like so I was in like skateboards, right? And skateboarding has been a declining niche since like 2015, 2016. Like nobody skateboards anymore. Now I was like number one, but that's still a very small market. And so I was limited by like that market ceiling. And that's something like I didn't really consider ahead of time. But like at a certain point, you do have to think about like TAM, everything. Like and like especially if you can like try to like easily quantify the size of like the potential revenue you can get to, like that's it's pretty important because you're gonna work hard regardless. You might as well work hard at something that has a high probability of a significant outcome, like whatever significant outcome means to you.
Well, and that goes back to that binary kind of mindset is, okay, I want to exit for or retire with, however you want to phrase that, this much cash in the bank, stocks, real estate, whatever it is. Okay, can my current business actually generate enough to get me
Yeah.
there? If I'm number one, maybe not. If you're in kind of a really small niche. I mean, I talked to someone one time, and they put the ball bearings in the back of the DHL trucks. It was a small business. It was great, but it was small, like the upside, because that was their thing. And so, if you want to buy that, it's a good living for you to have, but you're not going to sell for $40 million. And so you are right. And a lot of owners, they can see the extreme, like you mentioned, the buddy at the golf country club. Yeah, I sold for a 6x multiple, and they get that in their mind, but not knowing kind of where you're trying to go to, and is it realistic to get there? It is really a fool's errand, because you can spend a lot of time on something and realize this is never get me there, and no matter systems, hiring,
Yeah.
it's just not going to do it. The TAM's is not big enough.
I think it's incredibly important. It's something that it took me so long to learn. Like where I was like, okay, I could spend like 40, 60 hours a week working on merch by Amazon or
Hmm.
like slinging t-shirts. And I was like, okay, I did okay with this. I mean, it paid my rent for like 10 years. I mean, but or I could go work on something that has like actually significant potential
Yeah.
because you can work hard regardless. So it's just
Yeah.
about like choosing like the right opportunity.
All right. So we fast forward 10 years from today, and we're talking again. Where are you at? What are you doing then?
I want to run a private equity firm.
Oh,
Um,
wow.
and,
Okay.
and so buying, investing in probably e-commerce type businesses, go through that process of raising money. Everything I've done so far has been off of like kind of like my personal bankroll. I'm starting to build up a track record. Look, growing up, I had no idea private equity was even a thing. Like
Right. Right.
this
Right.
is
Yeah.
so like new to
Yeah.
me. Like I've just been trying to learn more about like the like searcher community, independent sponsor routes, like going that kind of route. But that's kind of like the North Star in my head. I just turned 32 like last week. So ideally like by 35 to 40, start running like something like that.
Okay, well, cool. That's awesome. That's exciting to hear. And to your point a minute ago, something that has a lot of upside. If
Yeah.
PE is done right, it
Yeah.
has a lot of upside. So happy birthday, and I hope that works out for you. I will. Two last questions. First one is, PE gets a lot of bad rap, if you will, and I think that's mainly because we hear about private equity getting Waterburger, or something like that. It's something that we can all hear and see, and we can go look at like, oh, that's terrible. But there's a lot of PE out there. There's a lot more than people even realize exists. Companies you've never even heard of. And so, can it be bad? Yes. Can it be great? Yes. It just kind of depends on the PE group. But what advice would you give to owners who are being solicited by PE? Like, how do they evaluate which one's a good one, a good fit maybe for them?
Well, so you have to think about like a PE firm is going to do a ton of these transactions. They are going to have an information advantage on you. And whenever they have like that kind of like information advantage on you, you need to try to minimize that as much as possible. So you need to be reaching out to previous people who they've done deals with. Like, do they retrade the LOI? Like, do they sneak in clauses to like the APA that they're not like redlining appropriately? Like, you need to try to figure out like who you're dealing with. Because even if it's like an all cash deal or something, you need to know that you have a reliable counterparty in that transaction.
Yeah. Obviously, I'm biased. We do sell side work. So we always tell owners, hey, you need to see a lot of offers for a lot of things that we mentioned
Yeah.
here. It's not to say that the one off PE, strategic, buddy, whatever, can't be a good offer for you. It definitely can be. But you are right. It's a high risk, high stakes game you're playing. And for a lot of owners, it is going to be one time. And so make sure you're playing it well. It's not to say that PE is good or bad or whatever, because those deals I've seen be tremendous and I've seen them flop. So it can go a
Yeah.
lot of ways. It can go, but they are more shrewd in this world. So you might be the best roofer, Amazon reseller. You might be the best at what you do, but this is just a different game. And so you do got to consider that. All right, man. So tell people what you're doing now, where they can find you, where they can connect, and who would be the right person to connect with you.
Yeah, I mean, so I'm the chief growth officer for Bright Shift Commerce. We help 7 to 8 figure e-commerce brands sell, scale on Amazon. Yeah, so I mean, if you're looking for any sort of Amazon help, come to us. I'm always happy to talk like e-commerce acquisitions, e-commerce M&A, e-commerce how to do due diligence on like e-commerce businesses. Something I've done numerous times across 7, 8 figure transactions, helping people find like red flags in acquisitions, stuff like that. You can reach out to me on Twitter at dholmes94, and then yeah, go from there.
Awesome. And well, it was great connecting and look forward to your PE dominance in the future.
Yeah, we'll stay in touch. Yeah, I'll let you know.